I've been playing football management games a long time. I'm near 40, so my experiences towards football management type games was stuff like Championship Manager 93, Ultimate Soccer Manager, which I still hold dear, Alex Ferguson's Player Manager, and even the LMA Manager series, which was just amazing, and I do honestly think Codemasters should bring back or at least sell on at some point. But since the Championship Manager name died out due to licensing issues, I believe, Football Manager has reigned supreme for many, many years now, and I have played almost every single one on a near yearly basis. There was some breaks taken. Sometimes you get lost in multiple saves. For instance, I held on to Football Manager 08 all the way up to Football Manager 11, then bought 12, but didn't bother buying another until FM16, then didn't buy another until Lockdown, which was FM20. But since they have appeared on Gamepass, I have been playing them almost yearly now, FM21, and ever since release FM22, and it's time now to say goodbye, Catherine Jenkins style, as the FM23 is on the horizon and new adventures on distant shores await. So this is basically my love letter to Football Manager 22, not my longest played Football Manager game. FM16 gets that nod as I have way too many saves during that one, so much I almost didn't consider upgrading to FM20 at one point, but FM22 has definitely been my most memorable and enjoyable of all the games, as I feel the game was at an almost perfect state of being. There's been nothing like the saves of this one, nothing like the match engine, nothing like the tactics or added features like scouting, the press conferences, the board meetings, the staff meetings, the player contracts or transfer demands, actually getting sacked on reasonable occasions, which is usually because of more realistic demands, the wonder kids, the reputation of teams, deadline day. Everything just felt like it was at the perfect Zen-like experience. And it will be a hard transition for me this time, even after only 1 year of playing, because it was so enjoyable, and I want to share with you my most memorable saves from this whole experience, from beginning to end, as we say goodbye to Football Manager 2022. So my latest save, as it's my last, is one I've labelled the Teenage Dirtbag, because it's a cheat save. I've done these since I said goodbye to FM20. I buy the editor and choose a failing club whom I've never managed before. This time I chose Schalke, as they were recently relegated to the second Bundesliga, have financial troubles, and could do with a bit of a boost, along with Germany having some of the leanest restrictions on player signings in the game, as you can basically sign anyone from anywhere and register 99 players, 12 of which have to be German. So your youth intake every year should cover you on that end. And so you have complete free reign, something which works wonders for my teenage part of my save, as I limit my signings to 19 and under. I do not sign anyone over 19. So regular challenges for most FMs as we try to develop our players, and Schalke have great facilities already, which I have since updated over the 3 seasons I've done so far, giving us one of the near best of everything in Germany, as we have 18 on everything: training, youths, recruitment and coaching. The dirtbag side of the name comes from the fact I use hidden features like being able to see current ability, potential ability, asking price to see how much you actually have to pay for players, along with using a downloadable plug-and-play tactic for the first time, along with downloadable set pieces and training regimes. These are things I usually do myself, even if they might not be brutally amazing. I don't give myself absolutely tons of money. I only give myself 25 million every transfer window, so 50 million a year, and I do that by adding money onto the balance at the time. So when I started with a negative 70 million quid, you start to see the issues that Schalke had and why I love these types of saves, because adding 25 million to that at the start did the better part of naff all, along with me not even getting much money during the January transfer either first season. In fact, I could only afford 2 players, a centre midfielder called Diaz from Uruguay for 1.2 million, and Shuranov, a German, for 250k. Diaz has gone on to be worth nearly 40 million quid, which is amazing, but Shuranov hasn't really grown as a player, so I had to buy Thiago Thomas to replace him for 12 million, and now he's worth 50. My highest transfer spend so far has been 13 million on my right back, and so you start to see that even cheating and knowing everything doesn't mean you get to buy just about anyone to win the league straight away. I'm still stuck with very little money and top players with a current ability over 130 out of 200 still don't seem to want to play here. So it opens your eyes to the game systems a lot, and that's why I love to do it at the end, to see what I've got right and wrong during my other playthroughs, as I usually always start in the lowest leagues. It's where I get my most fun out of all the Football Manager games. My first save, for instance, saw me taking over a local team in the Vanarama National North, so it was Kidderminster Harriers. Whenever I start an FM, I do like to do a bit of an apprenticeship of sorts to get used to managing on the new game. Ever since FM20, I have always managed Kiddie, as I'm a bloke from Dudley, so they are pretty close to me. It's basically either them or Telford, and Telford always seem like posh new city twats all in white, so I've always chose Kiddie. My angry thoughts towards Telford always stem from them beating me every game I manage also, so I have a semi-sort of rivalry with them, but I spent 6 seasons with Kiddie, only getting promoted once, but giving them a decent mid-table finish consistently in the Vanarama National League. We never had any money, and I felt like we were realistically going nowhere, so I quit that save and considered my apprenticeship done. Now, it was time for my proper save, as I like to call it, and whenever I do one of these, I always go to Scotland. Why? Because I love the country and its football teams, even though I've never been there. East Stirling used to be my chosen club, but as they are gone now, I've decided to manage a mix of Queen's Park and Edinburgh City. This time I chose Edinburgh, as they are in League 2 of Scotland, and enjoyed promotion runs. So over the course of 6 seasons, I took Edinburgh to the lofty heights of League 1. Yeah, I didn't exactly do a fat lot. We got promoted after 2 seasons to League 1, then we got promoted to the Scottish Championship during my 6th season, where I then saw the Queen's Park job was available, who were mid-table in the Scottish Championship, but I felt they had a better transfer budget than the pittance I was getting, along with a bit of a better team, so I applied and actually got the job. I moved to Glasgow, bought about 5 players and got promoted to the Scottish Premier League, where we secured mid-table the next season and then finished second the season after that with just another 3 players bought. But during that pre-season, we were basically going to lose all our best players. One of which was actually a wonder kid who had come through the academy. He got sold to Arsenal for 9 million quid by the board. Yes, I didn't have a say in his sale, so I basically resigned from the job and looked around for another, seeing Feyenoord pop up as their manager joined my real-life supporting team, Wolves, and so I managed to impress the board to hire me, and suddenly I was in. They had a 60 million quid budget, great academy, training facilities, and squad that could realistically challenge Ajax, which I did. I finished second 2 seasons running and then won the league the third, along with somehow getting the easiest Champions League run I've ever had on any football manager, meaning I shocked the world like Porto and ended up winning the blooming thing. My hardest part of the Champions League was the group phase, where I had Liverpool, Atletico Madrid and Bohemians of all teams, beating the Irish team twice, losing to Liverpool twice, but getting a lucky 1-0 win against Atletico at home, and then a 0-0 draw in Madrid. So I finished second, meaning I went on to the next phases, where I took on Monaco in the final 16, Ajax in the quarters, then Dynamo Zagreb in the semis, whom knocked out Man City, but lost 5-3 on aggregate to me, before facing Porto in the final, who I ended up thrashing 4-0. Tottenham and Man United got knocked out in the group stages, and Liverpool lost to Bayern in the first knockout round, who then lost to Porto. It was a strange year for sure, as all the Italian teams went out quite early also, along with Barca, who didn't even qualify for the Champions League anyway, and Real Madrid finished third in their group. So up pop Inter Milan after that, looking for a new manager, and they actually offer me the job straight away. Something that hadn't happened to me for many years. I'm used to having to apply for jobs since FM12, but I took it and took Inter to some great heights during my 7-season run, winning Serie A every year, along with the Coppa Italia and 7 times also. And the Champions League, I also won 3 more times. Inter became a very rich club and were basically the best in the world, but I felt like I had done everything at that point, and I wanted to get back to my roots. I wanted to finally manage Wolverhampton Wanderers. So I quit the save, started all over again, and joined Wolves. But it was a massive failure. Wolves last season had big issues, and I might be biased, but I feel some of our players are better than how they are represented here. So I got sacked after just 4 months in charge, mainly as I was experimenting with tactics. My go-to tactic has always been 4-1-2-2-1 or 4-3-3 with a DM for the uninitiated. I like to attack down the wings and use inside forwards along with overlapping wing backs and a defensive midfielder on support duty, much like Makalele. That's what I had used with Kiddy all the way up to Inter, but with the rise of the 4-2-3-1 and everyone talking about how broken it is, I decided to attempt my own version of that tactic at Wolves, but I couldn't for the life of me get it to work. We had a very middling pre-season and our league form was basically non-existent, much like Wolves in real life. We were in the bottom 3 when I got sacked and had a huge losing streak of 7 games, so they sacked me and I decided to attempt a low league save once more. 2 in fact, with more attempts at the 4-2-3-1, both times getting myself sacked in November due to poor results. First club I joined was Ebbsfleet, second was AFC Floyd. Both times I failed heavily and got sacked, so I decided to bash away the 4-2-3-1 once and for all, and thought about going back to Inter for some fun after 3 sackings on the bounce, but I instead decided to try the cheesy save. I joined Newcastle. Yes, mega money Newcastle. It only lasted 4 seasons before I got bored with them having way too much money and being able to buy near enough everyone, but I bought Declan Rice, Neves, Mbappe, Jules Koundé, and I won the league twice along with 1 Champions League title using my 4-3-3 once more, so I decided to do something I hadn't done in an age for my next one. I heard about the Park to Prem Challenge, loaded up every league in England all the way down to level 12, and took over Dudley Town, my hometown club. Now this save was legendary. More than my Inter one for me anyway, as I guided Dudley to a mid-table finish first season, and then achieved 3 back-to-back promotions with my new 4-4-2 formation I'd come up with. I couldn't believe how great it was performing in the lowest leagues as we started at level 10. We still had no money. We were using loans off Wolves, West Brom and Walsall, along with free transfers, one of which was an amazing created player called Count. Yes, Charles Count with a K, a Birmingham-born Kenyan who went on to have a great non-league career with Dudley, Stourbridge, Hales Owen and later Kidderminster, where he scored over 30 goals a season for every club. How this guy didn't get bought by a better club, I'll never know, as he just kept shifting clubs when his contract ran out. I did try to sign him for the team I left Dudley for after my 4th season, newly relegated from League 2, York City, but he decided to sign a new contract with Dudley instead for 2 more years for less money. Loyalty, I guess. He must have had it in spades. Regardless, my York City side got promoted back to League 2 in my first season, and then Wrexham came a-calling, offering me the job as they had sacked their manager for failing to gain promotion via the playoffs. Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool himself, came a-knocking on my door and offered me the job personally. Here he was, Hollywood himself. You don't turn down Hollywood, do you? I thought, especially since their budgets were quadruple mine at York. They looked like they had a team which could get promoted even if they were the wrong side of 30 most of the players, and I figured it would be a great opportunity to advance my career at this point, so I took the job. We had a great pre-season, winning every game. We had a great first 2 to 3 months, in fact, winning every game in the league also. But then Tottenham happened. We were in the 4th round of the League Cup. We had some very easy fixtures to get us there, and we drew Spurs in the 4th. We were going to lose, that was obvious, but it was the nature of the loss that hit us the hardest. We got thumped a whopping 11-0. Kane had a hat-trick after 4 minutes, and my boys suddenly lost confidence in everything. We went on to lose nearly every game in the league after that. We won the odd one here and there, and my job was at risk big time. Deadpool wasn't happy, but I ensured him we could still get promoted in the emergency meeting, and we kind of did. Yes, it wasn't the automatic that he wanted. We finished 6th in the league, so went into the playoffs and we won them. I got Wrexham promoted to League One in my first season. I was a manager who had just got his 5th back-to-back promotion. I was now a promotion specialist, but for Wrexham and Ryan it wasn't good enough. The day after I won promotion, I was sacked for failing to meet board expectations. At this point I was a little dismayed. Dudley had managed to get to the National North, so didn't need a manager. York finished mid-table, so didn't need one either, so I scouted around during the end of season break looking for a club and came across Cardiff, a team which had just been relegated to League One, a team looking for promotion. I didn't think I had much of a chance, but they hired me and suddenly I felt rich once again. I had championship quality players. A couple were in fact Prem level, as they had received back-to-back relegations from the Prem down to League One, and as no one wanted to meet their release clauses, which were quite high, I would say, for League One, they stayed here, giving me an invincible team. I didn't even have to buy anyone with the £42 million transfer budget that I received. But I did buy a goalkeeper and a right back from Derby, whom also got relegated with us. For pennies really, 1.5 million each I paid. Players called Marsh and Whittaker, both 18 years old and ready for the first team. Players who I will talk about in more detail in a bit because they pop up later on in my story. But for now, hammering Wrexham was all I wanted to do, along with promotion, and I thumped them 6-1 and 8-2 in both games. We got promoted in March, we didn't lose a single game all season, and finished with 126 points, beating Wolves' record easily and winning 30 games, drawing 6. Cardiff also at this point had training facilities of 20, youths of 18, coaching of 18, and recruitment of 20. I didn't touch any of that, I inherited it, and that must have been where the Prem money got spent. But Wrexham, to my delight, finished bottom of the league with just 23 points. They were going through 2 managers a season at this rate, as by the time of me ending the save, they finished bottom of the National League. What a fall from grace. It was hilarious, and yes, Ryan had left at this point. They were taken over by some local consortium and so had no money. Dudley was also still in the National North. They stayed there the entire time, finishing mid-table consistently, and York got to League One, but were going like a yo-yo between that and League Two. My career, though, was skyrocketing at this point. I got given 126 million quid to spend in the Championship, so I blew the lot on reaching the Prem first time. I got a new centre-back, a centre midfielder box-to-box, a left midfielder, and a striker from Prem teams. Bought them all, and they were amazing. We won the Championship the first time of asking. 7 promotions on the bounce my guy had at this point. 4-star reputation that was very much deserved. He was a true Park to Prem hero, and I believed we could have done okay in the Prem. I thought we could have survived, but then the board got taken over by a very rich benefactor. There have been rumours since Christmas. We got a transfer ban in January, so I couldn't bring anyone in because of them, but it didn't happen until the end of the season, and the new rich owner, whom was a sugar daddy, sacked me. and appointed Roberto De Zerbi, the real-life Brighton manager at the minute. He, on the game, was in charge of Tottenham when I lost 11-0, but he had been out of work since getting the sack in January because Spurs were mid-table at the time, so in their wisdom, they hired him and bogged me off. Now, I didn't want to quit this save. I was actually having a lot of fun, so I waited all summer for a club, but none of them seemed appealing. That was until the England manager job popped up. I've never been one for national management on here. I find it boring, but I decided to apply because what's the worst that could happen? I wait around a bit till someone in the Championship gets sacked, but to my dismay, England instantly offered me the job, and so I took it. And what an England side I inherited. Every one of the players were amazing. We could win a lot, I thought. And they had just finished in the final of the World Cup but lost to Brazil. So the gaffer, Zinedine Zidane, yep, he was in charge of England. He moved to Manchester United, leaving the position open for me. And I took it. A 4-year contract where I managed no one but England. Cardiff at this point sacked De Zerbi in November as they were rock bottom of the league and got relegated with just 9 points all season, reaching the playoffs in every season after that but never getting promoted again. All of my star players were sold. My goalkeeper and right back joined Man City and got into my England team setup, along with a player from Swansea whom I had always had my eye on but would never join me. He went on to join Man City also, and I bought up an Arsenal centre-back who also joined Man City. They were stacked at this point, with Haaland up front winning everything, along with my England team going on to win the Nations League, the European Championship for the first time ever, and in my last season, we claimed the World Cup, our second ever one, by beating France in the final 1-0. I was finally a 5-star manager. And when I left England, I thought I'd get loads of job offers. In reality, though, I got 0. No managers got sacked. Man City were starting to decline at this point as they finished 4th in the league, but when I tried to convince them to hire me, with their gaffer being under the cosh, they didn't like me talking to the press and so kept Jurgen Klopp in charge. Yes, he left Liverpool for Man City when Pep joined Paris. That season I joined Cardiff. So I waited around a bit, and suddenly in the middle of July, the Celtic manager decided to join Napoli, a job I didn't really consider, but Celtic, champions of Scotland, a great team, loads of money. I thought, let's manage an easy team and win things to give myself a somewhat major trophy outside of the Euro and World Cup I only had on my portfolio. Celtic instantly hired me the second I applied, and we went on to dominate the Scottish League undefeated and won nearly every game. I drew 6 games, that was it all season, but beat Rangers on every occasion. My Champions League results were diabolical though, as I was knocked out the group stage, finishing rock bottom with 0 points. We were 4th seed for a reason, it seems, and our group consisted of Man City, Sevilla, and Ajax. Now, I was actually content at Celtic. I figured I could try to make them a force in Europe, as our youth team could win the Scottish League, but Man City sacked Klopp at the end of the season, and so I went for it. I got an interview and said everything I thought they'd love to hear, as they wanted to win the league and had finished 4th twice. So I promised them I'd win the league and ended up getting the job. Reunited with Marsh and Whittaker, along with Barnes, the centre-back, Sharp, the centre midfield. They had Bellingham, Haaland, Foden, Max Aarons, Lamptey, Neves, Neto, Chilwell, a Brazilian right winger called Diaz, who was one of the best in the world at that point. This team was stacked and didn't play 4-4-2, which I had still been using at that point. I couldn't have got them to fit in it either, so it was back to my 4-3-3, and I of course went on to win absolutely everything in my first season, barely spending any of my £220 million transfer budget. I won the league 5 times in the row, FA Cup twice, League Cup once, Champions League 4 times, only losing in the final once to Spurs of all blooming teams who had since gone on to finish second in the league consistently with Eric Ten Hag as gaffer now, and I felt complete. That was probably the best save I had ever had on any football manager. It was exciting, fun, full of twists and turns as I went through park to prem, winning everything I can with England and playing consistently for many months. I still have my save, so I would love one of those plaques made eventually where you can put your team on all your positions. I also still have my intersave, so I could do it with that also, but it was mid-September when I ended it, and with 23 on the horizon, a game which has been released this week, I decided it was time for the cheat save in preparation with Schalke. I will remain to play with them until I win the league and Champions League, then I will jump onto the new game, and I'm looking forward to the new match engine, along with the changes to fan integration and scouting. Hopefully deadline day becomes a bit more intensive, as it was such a great feature for the game. I just feel you can't offload players as much during it on loan when that happens in real life. I also hope the press conferences don't keep mentioning referees. I'm sick of saying I support the referees, and I've had enough of that. But overall, I will always hold dear my 2 main saves during Football Manager 22, especially my Dudley Town one, as I made my local team proud, I feel, giving them the platform to become a well-known non-league team, and stuff Wrexham and Cardiff for what they did to me, I say. Please, if you've got to this point in the video, let me know how your best saves during this year went. Let me know the clubs you've managed, and if you're getting FM23. Thanks for listening to me if you've got this far, and happy gaming.